What is going on, guys? DoMake here, and you might ask yourself, where's your face, content creator? Well, today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. So, for those of you who are maybe unaware, I just played in an RCQ, and I happened to, drum roll please, this is where my editor puts in a drum roll, I got this blue piece of paper that says, congratulations on qualifying for the Season 4 Round 2 Magic the Gathering United States Regional Championship. So as you can probably discern from this piece of paper that I have in front of you, I won the RCQ. Well, I didn't technically win. It was a 2-slot event because it was a WPN premium store, so first and second place both get invites. So I figured we're going to do something a little different today. I, in front of me, as you can see right here, have the paper deck list. Well, it's not a piece of paper, it's the actual cards. And we're going to show you my deck list. We're going to go one by one, talk about some individual card choices, and yeah, just kind of see what the vibe is, trying some different type of content. So if you enjoy this type of content, please leave a comment in the comment section down below if you would like to maybe see some more deck profiles when I play events and maybe some more RCQs that I play. Not sure if I'm going to play any more RCQs now because I think I'm only planning on going to one of the RCs for this cycle. But maybe I'll play, go hang out, and have a little bit more fun. So, as you can see, we are playing Pixie. Now, it's a little bit of an interesting deck choice. I did, on the car ride to the RCQ, I had the blue-red deck, I had blue-red Cauldron ready to go, and I just kept thinking to myself, am I doing something wrong by not playing the Cauldron deck? Been working a lot on this Pixie deck, trying to figure out the right configuration of threats and answers and one-drops and things like that, but I think we have come to a very, very, very good point. So let's get into this little deck profile here. So the first cards that I want to highlight are the Bouncers, I guess the Pixies, as you will. 4 Nurturing Pixie, 4 Sun Pearl Kirin, and a single copy of Fear of Isolation. Now, the 4 Pixie and the 4 Sun Pearl Kirin, these are sort of standard. These are your main bounces. The one thing that I will mention, decks like Pixie in the past have played a lot more copies of bounces. Some have played, 4 Pixie, 4 Kirin, and 4 Fear of Isolation to go up to the full 12. The issue is with the removal of Hopeless Nightmare from the format, you'll notice the cards that we have to bounce are not really as good as they were before. So we are trimming a little bit on the ways to bounce, but we are sort of supplementing that with some additional one-drops and ways to pressure early on that maybe, Pixie decks in the past didn't have this sort of level of aggression that this version does, and that's kind of part of the reason I like this so much. But yeah, Pixie and Kirin are your best options because Kirin, just the ability to, the flash on this is very, very important, especially in post-board games where you'll see in the sideboard, we have a lot more instants we can play on their turn, stuff like Nowhere to Run that we'll get to in a second, and the Kirin allows you to just sort of like hold up your mana. If they don't do anything, you can play the Sun Pearl Kirin, pick up the talent, maybe even sometimes in response to a removal spell, you can say they're targeting your token, you can play the Sun Pearl Kirin, bounce the token, draw a card off of that, and that's a pretty good exchange. So that is it for sort of the bouncers, as it were. And now we go to the supplemental one-drops. Now, there's been some Pixie lists floating around on the interwebs and mostly on Magic the Gathering Online, and a lot of them are playing 4 copies of this card, Spy, Glass, Siren. You'll notice I'm only playing 3. That's because, this card, it is a lot better in Dimir midrange, and just because like Dimir midrange is playing a whole bunch of Kaitos, they need an additional one-drop, but you'll notice in a second, we have other one-drops. And there is one card that Esper Pixie players on MTGO are not playing, and I don't really understand why they are not playing this card, and that is Cecil. 3 copies of Cecil Dark Knight. I don't really know how to explain it other than this card is just completely ridiculous. It is one of the best aggressive one-drops because it's very hard to block early on. 2/3 Death Touch means that they're likely not going to be able to trade with it in combat until most of the time turn 3, and then by then you've already dealt a good amount of damage. The other really important thing about Cecil in this particular deck list, because we're playing 3 colors, we have 8 Shocklands and 4 Starting Towns. There was a match in the top 8, the quarterfinals of today's RCQ, where I had a Cecil in play and an untapped Starting Town, and I just took a damage. Didn't play a spell off of it, just took a damage. Untapped, took another damage, flipped the Cecil the next turn, and it's just like, the fact that it flips into a 4/4 lifelink. 1 mana, 4/4 lifelink. I don't think I need to tell you why a 1 mana 4/4 lifelink is good. Pixie players out there, this is a lesson to be learned. Play Cecil Dark Knight. This card, ridiculous. So there's the 1-drops, and then I just kind of put the talents here as well. This is, again, because we don't have any copies of Hopeless Nightmare, Stormchaser's talent is still the best thing to be able to bounce. Sometimes there are some situations where you can bounce Spyglass Siren if you have a copy of one of these 9 bouncers and you just have nothing else to bounce. You make an extra map. But, I mean, ideally you want to be bouncing talent, or, we'll get to the other ones in a second, the Nowhere to Runs. But yeah, just, again, the most important thing that I think about, that I want to reiterate, the whole archetype in general, is I think that people are just not being aggressive enough. They're not playing enough 1-drops, they're playing Sirens and Talents, but again, just Cecil, the strength of this deck that you'll see in a second here is the power of the 3-drops. And the best way to maximize your aggressive 3-drops is just play more 1-drops. So that's what we're doing here, 3 copies of Cecil. I thought about going to 4, but it is legendary, so I think 3 is the correct number for now. So now we get to another sort of heated point of debate here, the 3-drops. A lot of the lists online, on Magic the Gathering Online, are playing 4 copies of Cosmogran Zenith. And this is kind of the new card from Edge of Eternities. For those of you who have not seen this card before, there you go in all of its glory. It's a 3-mana 2/4. Whenever you play your second spell each turn, you can either make 2 1/1s or put a counter on each creature you control. So remember, going back to the fact that we're playing additional 1-drops, we have 10 of them, putting +1/+1 counters on more of your 1-drops when you have more of them, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the other 3-drop is where it gets a little interesting, right? Now, Zenith, certainly fantastic. When your curve is this low, you have a lot of 1-drops. The other thing about Cosmogran Zenith is the Pixies, Sunpearl Kirin and Nurturing Pixie, those cards very easily allow you to double spell, where even if you have no cards in hand and you draw a Nurturing Pixie, you can go Nurturing Pixie, pick up, ideally maybe Stormchaser's talent, and that gives you 2 spells for Cosmogran Zenith. So this card, certainly fantastic. Personally, I've seen some people trimming a copy. I don't think I would do that. I think this is the best 3-drop in the deck. And again, the most important thing that I think that Pixie players need to realize is you gotta be more aggressive, especially given the speed of the Cauldron deck and what it is capable of doing. You have to get them dead early. And that leads into our second 3-drop here. Now, you might be expecting to see some number of stock-ups. You are not going to see those. You are going to see Kaido, Bane of Nightmares, in the main deck. Now, a lot of Pixie players online are playing 4 Cosmogran and then somewhere between 2 and 3 copies of Stock Up. And I tried that list a whole bunch. And I kept getting into situations where I would tap out for a Stock Up on turn 3. Maybe I have some stuff in play, but then I would just fall too far behind, right? The most important thing that I'm stressing in this whole deck profile is just be more aggressive. With how low your curve is and how aggressive you can be with like turn 1 talent, turn 2 Pixie, pick up talent, replay talent, you want to lean that into an aggressive 3-drop. And that's why I've decided to play both Zenith and Kaido in the main, no stock-ups. I don't think I need to tell you why Kaido is good. This is probably the single best card in the Dimir midrange deck, and this is basically the entire reason that we're playing Spyglass Siren, is to have a cheap flyer to be able to ninjutsu it on turn 3. This card is very hard to kill, applies a ton of pressure, draws cards, taps creatures. This card just does everything. And I've been considering playing a 4th copy, but I think 7 total 3-drops is just about where you want to be for a deck like this. So that is the threats part of the deck. Now let's get to the interaction. So we're going to start off with 4 Tragic Trajectory. Another new card here from Edge of Eternities. This card is fantastic in the Pixie deck because the Void says, basically, this is -2/-2 sorcery, and then if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, -10/-10. Well, we have a lot of ways to do that. Kaido Bane of Nightmares picks up a permanent, and then all of, not Spyglass Siren as well, sacrifice the map token, and then the Sun Procurans, the Pixies, and the Fear of Isolation. So it's very, very easy to turn on Tragic Trajectory. The downside, if this card has a downside, it is this little word called sorcery. That is kind of awkward, does come up from time to time, but, you know, it's still one of the best removal spells. Nowhere to Run, another fantastic removal spell, and this is, in creature matchups, the best thing that you want to be picking up with Pixie. You just want to cast this on turn 2, turn 3, Pixie, pick it up, play it again, kill their next guy, so on and so forth. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Now, what do we have left here? Only 2 cards left, 2 non-land cards left in the main deck. Now, I'm not playing stock up, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to draw cards. 2 copies of Cryogen Relic. So this one is sort of my stock up replacement. The reason that I like playing this over stock up is because we already have 7 3-drops. I don't want to play 9, at least in the main deck. Relic is also, so it's lower on the curve, but it also gives you something more to do with your Pixies, Karens, and the Fear of Isolation. Because again, remember, we don't have Hopeless Nightmare, so we need some way to just make sure that we can have a good permanent to pick up in matchups where Nowhere to Run is not good. Sometimes, like, you know, and just to juice up the Pixies, sometimes you don't draw talent, so on and so forth. So this one, when it enters or leaves the battlefield, you draw a card. So very, very good with all the Pixies and all that. The one thing that I did fail to mention with the Kaido and Zeniths, the really nice thing about playing Kaido and Zenith, as you can see here, is that on turn 3, say, for example, you attack with a 1-drop, like a Spyglass Siren, you can pick up the Spyglass Siren with Kaido, and now you have the Spyglass Siren in hand, so then turn 4, you can go Zenith, Spyglass, even if you don't have an additional 1-drop ready to go with the Zenith. So these cards just kind of work fantastic together. So that is it for the non-land cards. Moving on to the mana base, we'll do this one pretty quickly, although I wanted to show you these sweet shock lands. Oh, look at those. Watery Graves and Godless Shrines. This was a recent purchase of mine. I had been wanting to get retro shocklands for Modern anyways, and the fact that they were reprinted into Standard gave me a good excuse, but I mean, just look at that. Oh my goodness. You can't tell me that doesn't look fantastic. So 8 shocklands, pretty self-explanatory. 4 starting towns. I've seen people cut one, but given the fact that you are a 3-color deck, especially this version that's playing Cecil in addition to the other blue 1-drops, you just need to make sure you have access to all 3 colors on turn 1. So there you go. 3 copies of Concealed Courtyard. You could play 4, but we're already playing 4 starting towns, and I don't want to play 8 fast lands. So 3 Concealed Courtyard there. And then for the Verges, we have 4 Gloomlake Verge, because this is the one that makes blue on turn 1. And remember, your 1-drops are Spyglass Siren, Stormchaser's Talent, and Cecil. 2 of those are blue, so this is the best land on turn 1. And then, for the other Verges, we have 2 Flood Farm and 1 Bleach Bone. This is white on turn 1. This is black on turn 1. I've actually been considering going -1 Flood Farm, +1 Bleach Bone, but because of the 3 Concealed Courtyards, you know, we already have a lot of black-white lands, so I think 1 of these and 2 of these makes sense. I've seen a lot of versions online play 4 Flood Farm, and I don't understand it, because you don't actually have a white 1-drop. You have blue 1-drops, and in this case, we have black 1-drops. Most people aren't playing Cecil, because maybe they just don't know yet. But yeah, don't play 4 Flood Farm Verge. At least just play 1 Bleach Bone. And then the 2 basic lands, got to show these off because these are my favorite basics. 1 island, 1 swamp, the OG. This island, by the way, as you can tell, a lot of love. We'll say heavily, not heavily played, well loved is what I would say about this island. The swamp is kind of minty though. That's a nice swamp. Beta lands. All right, that's it for the main deck. Let's go on to the sideboard very briefly here. So we're going to start off a lot of 2-ofs. 2 Exercise, very good. Exile an artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. Be able to kill Agatha's Soul Cauldron, Proph's Eidetic Memory, exiles Curiosity against Dimir, can kill big dragons like Nova Hellkite, just a very good catch-all card. Love it. You know, it is sorcery speed, so you don't want to play a ton of copies, but just has a lot of utility. 2 Duress. This is the mystical Strixhaven Mystical Archive Duress. Love this artwork. But yeah, fantastic against control. Anybody who's playing a lot of non-creature spells, good to go. Would not board in Duress against the Cauldron decks, though, because they're pretty evenly split on creatures and non-creatures, so I think they have too many creatures to want to bring in Duress. And then, because we don't have him in the main, gotta play him somewhere. Again, you know, I want access to this card because the one issue and the one thing that I have, the problem that I've been running into, at least with the main deck, by moving these to the sideboard, is in game 1 situations, you actually don't have a lot to pick up with Storm Chaser's talent, the level 2, to be able to return an instant or sorcery. The only instant or sorcery in the main deck is Tragic. So in matchups where Tragic is bad, your talent level 2s are not very good. But you have a ton of instants and sorceries in the post-board games, so post-board against control, your talents become a lot better. Stock-ups are a big part of that. 2 copies of Annul. My personal favorite artwork. I know a lot of people prefer the Urza Saga because it's the retro border, but I started playing Magic right around the time when Mirrodin started, so I have a heavy soft spot for, like, any time that I get to play a card with that set symbol, I'm all for it. But Annul, counter an artifact or enchantment for 1 single mana. Very good against Profs, Cauldron, Fear of Missing Out, so it counters a lot in the Cauldron matchup. You can board it in against Dimir to counter Curiosity. Personally, I would not do that, but it's also good against control because it hits Pinnacle Starcage, Seam Rip, so on and so forth. Overlord of the Mistmarsh too, another big card that Annul hits. Couple of catch-all counter spells here in the form of No More Lies. You could play Negate, you could play Disdainful Stroke, you could play Spell Pierce, but a lot of times control decks will board into additional threats like Overlord of the Mistmoors, Beza, they have Meringue River Regent, so if you load up on Negates, then you can't counter the creatures, but if you load up on Disdainful Strokes, you can't counter stuff like Seam Rip, Stock Up, so on and so forth. So having a catch-all I think is pretty good, and I think this is a lot better with Talent, because, again, the catch-all is just very, very important when you get into those later stages of the games. I know Normalize becomes dead when you get to certain stages, but even against Blue-White, like, even later in the game when they get to 6-7 mana, it's very hard for them to double spell through No More Lies. So, I like No More Lies. Here's a bit of a weird one. I'm trying, as you can see, as I move this card sideways. We have a room here. Surgical Suite and Hospital Room. A lot of you probably have never seen this card before, and I haven't seen it until I pulled it out of my bulk box last night because I saw a list with it. So you're mainly playing this for the Surgical Suite half, which is 2 mana. When you unlock this door, return a creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Some people in this spot play 1 copy of Defiled Crypt, which is a single black mana room. When you unlock it, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, right? So this is 1 additional mana, but you get to put the creature directly into play, as opposed to in your hand, so it's more mana efficient sometimes. But the really cool thing about this is, against decks that have a lot of removal, you play the Surgical Suite, say you return a copy of Nurturing Pixie. Pixie comes into play, you bounce the Surgical Suite. And now, if they kill your Pixie, guess what you can do next turn? You can play the Surgical Suite, get back the Pixie, pick up the Surgical Suite. You see where this is going, right? So against decks that have a lot of removal, this card in a very, very long game can just sort of be an infinite source of card advantage, and the theory behind it was pretty good. I drew it against Dimir, the one Dimir player that I played against, and it was decent, but would maybe consider trying the Defiled Crypt instead of this. And then last couple of sideboard cards, Ghost Vacuums for Blue-Red Cauldron. Pretty self-explanatory, gotta get those VVs out of the graveyard. And then the reason you want to choose Ghost Vacuum is your graveyard hate. You don't want to play Rest in Peace because you are a Storm Chaser's talent deck, so it kind of locks you out of that. You could consider Agatha's Soul Cauldron, but I really like the mana efficiency of Ghost Vacuum with Cosmic Grand Zenith, so something to think about. Maybe a split is better. And then last but not least, a couple of removal spells, Catch-All, Seam Rip. I have been considering putting these in the main deck, potentially over a Spyglass Siren and the second Cryogen Relic to move these to the main deck. because it is very good against Cauldron, being able to remove a Cauldron, a Prophetic Memory, a large Fear of Missing Out, it just basically kills everything in their deck that isn't Tersa or Steamcore Scholar or Vivi, but they don't usually cast Vivis. So I don't know. This could be a main deck card. Not 100% sure on that. So that is the main deck in the sideboard. As far as the matchups are concerned, 6-round Swiss cut to a top 8. Round 1, I played against Jeskai Control, beat them 2-1. Round 2, I lost to Demir 0-2. Round 3, I actually played the person who I drove with, which was a 75 card mirror. I beat him 2-0. Round 4, beat Blue Eye Control. Round 5, beat Orzhov Ketramos. Round 6, intentionally draw. And then top 8, I defeated Mono Red Dragons. And then top 4, I got a rematch against the Orzhov Ketramos deck. Beat him in 2. So that is the entire event. Here's my promos, my takeaways. The Shoot the Sheriff for the participation promo. Again, WPN Premium, so shout out to Untapped Games in Providence, Rhode Island, 2 Jasper Flints, and then the foil Jasper Flint to top it all off. So yeah, there you go. Again, a little bit of a different style of video today, a little bit of deck tech, kind of talking through the card choices. If you guys like this sort of video, please let me know in the comment section down below. Would love to hear your thoughts if you guys want to see some more deck profile videos. And all right, folks, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.